Wide narrow squats are typically used as a warm-up exercise or a leg exercise. They're primarily focusing on your quadriceps, which is the front of the legs, with a little less engagement in those glutes and hamstrings, the backs of the legs. Set up for this position is originally getting in a normal kind of squat position to where your feet are about hip distance apart, torso nice and upright, core engaged. We're then going to step out into that first position, that wide position. So we want it outside of shoulder width. This is sometimes referred to as a sumo stance. You'll see in a lot of exercises when we perform sumo deadlifts or sumo squats. That's the stance we're talking about, means nice and wide outside of shoulder width. So we're going to step to that outside of shoulder width position here. Make sure whatever position our feet are in, our knees are always going to be kind of tracking in line with those toes. So they're not going to be caving inside like this on that wide. They're going to be pushing out to where they are over top of those feet. So I'm going to get down nice and low in this squat, as low as I can, focusing on pushing those knees out over top of those feet, keeping that torso upright and pushing that butt back like I'm sitting down onto a chair. I'm then going to stand on up. I'm now going to step my feet inside of shoulder width, so to where they're about 4 to 8 inches apart. Then I'm going to again get down nice and low, pushing those hips back. My knees are tracking right over my feet here. Coming back up, I'm going to step out the other direction, back into a sumo stance again. Push those hips out, step back in. And I'm going to be alternating back and forth between a wide outside of shoulder width stance and a narrow inside of shoulder width stance. Most common mistakes made on this exercise, there's 3 of them. The first one is, just like I pointed out in that setup, not tracking those knees over those toes. So when you get in that sumo stance, a lot of times those knees will want to collapse in like this, and this is going to put unnecessary strain on those knees. Remember, whenever you're squatting, you want to kind of make sure that those knees are tracking over those toes. So that's the most common mistake, letting them collapse inwards. The second most common mistake on this exercise is not bending the legs, not getting nice and low in that squat. So instead, kind of hinging on over like this with that upper torso instead of bending the legs. So remember, we want to focus on warming up those legs, especially if it's a warm-up exercise, or even if it's an exercise in the middle of that workout. We want full range of motion for the most benefits. So nice and low, bending at that knee joint in that movement. The last one is kind of rounding the back on over. This kind of pairs in with this. Normally I see this paired with not bending the legs, rounding the back over and looking down towards the floor, collapsing over with that upper body. So this can be done in conjunction with that last movement of not bending the legs, kind of over like this to where I'm looking down, or it can be done when you're performing the legs bending correctly as well. So coming down, but still kind of bending on over. Remember, when we're performing that squat, we want that good posture, shoulders back, chest up. We are hinging at the knees and the hips. We're not rounding that upper back. We're not rounding that thoracic spine up there. So we're not coming over like this as we hinge on over. Keep our good posture, focus on those hips going back throughout that movement.